we get points stuck pretty well.
I hope not. My topic is instructional communication. Learning is one of the most important aspects of one's life. It's very helpful to help you be successful and to communicate well with others. Instructional communication is the main way people learn throughout life. But what exactly is all a part of instructional communication? Today we will walk through all of the different parts that form together to explain it as a whole. Additionally, I will discuss a research study conducted on how instructional communication affects test results. In 1972, the International Communication Association created the Instructional Communication Division, according to Worley in 2007. And then in 2015, Richmond defined instructional communication. It examines teaching and learning using communication, theory, and research conclusions to explain, predict, and control instructional outcomes. Also, instructional communication is a transaction between students and teachers responding back and forth to one another. And there are six different parts within this. First is teaching satisfaction. The teacher must be satisfied with their job in order to teach their students well and for them to learn the knowledge from their teacher. The second is teacher self-efficacy. This means that a teacher believes he or she has the capacity to affect students' performance. When the teacher is more knowledgeable about the certain topic, they have higher confidence and are able to teach their student better. The third and fourth top parts are kind of linked together, which are student compliance and teacher compliance. This is an interpersonal communication, and it plays a big role in this transactional communication. It's important for the teacher to make connections with their students, but to maintain their identity as a teacher. Also, another important part is for the two to have respect for one another when discussing certain ideas and maybe having disagreements on some of the ideas. The next part is student motivation. There are many different aspects that can help motivate a student in wanting to learn something. A teacher can explain the importance of why they need to learn this specific subject. A student may want to learn because they want to get good grades, and those are just a couple examples. But overall, the student needs to motivate themselves because ultimately someone else cannot force them to learn something if they don't want to learn it. And then the last part is student learning. This is probably the most, if not the most important part of this. This is a combination of teachers presenting new information to the students and the students interpreting those ideas. There's a couple parts that make this successful. First, the teachers need to engage all students with unique teaching styles. Each class that a teacher is exposed to, there are different ways in which they learn. So they need to pick the correct style that works for all the students in the classroom. So they need to adapt their teaching style in order for the students to learn from them. Also, there's a lot of information covered in the courses, so it's important to include the meaningful content rather than just the stuff that doesn't matter as much, so it can be stored in the student's long-term memory. These 6 parts explain how instructional communication is built. Researchers can look into each aspect and its importance to figure out different ways instructional communication can be improved. Now that you have the general idea of what instructional communication is about, I will discuss a research study related to the topic. The purpose of the study was to investigate how exposure to classroom instruction affected the use of computer simulation that was designed to provide students an opportunity to apply material presented in class. Shiflett said the simulation was a crisis communication case study designed for students who were enrolled in a first-level college course of public relations. There were 17 students that were in the class that took the simulation, and their results were compared with 14 students who had no previous knowledge of this information, who had volunteered to take the simulation. The simulation was divided into 12 sections. Each part they had to make a decision based on the specific crisis that was going on. Within each of those sections, there were several questions in each part, so it ended up totaling to 67 points. Then the results for the study ended up being very close. The students enrolled in the class had an average mean of 38.58 points, whereas the students who were not enrolled in the class had an average mean of 39.11 points. But even though their test results were very similar to one another, the questions that they got right were different from one another. So, for example, individuals who took the class scored high on questions that required abstract thinking, and they applied many of their concepts that they learned in class onto those specific questions to help them. Whereas the students who had not taken this class or had previous knowledge of the specific topic in the simulation, they scored high on questions that relied on finding the information in the simulation. They had to use their resources wisely since they had no previous knowledge of the subject. The study concluded that having two sources of information from which to draw may create confusion in terms of how students will use one source or another. Overall, instructional communication was a very interesting branch to learn about. There are many small parts combined that build it all together. I found the article very interesting as well, since it showed when provided with multiple sources of information, it can be confusing and sometimes you might not know the right answer in the end. If there is one thing I want you to take away from this presentation, it is that instructional communication has great significance in everyone's lives, and there are many different factors to create the big picture in the end. Thank you. And here's my audience.
Hi, I'm Bert.
That was amazing. I'm Ernie.
I'm Meredith.
I'm Tawanda.
I'm Ronald.
And I'm Emily.
Guys.